Welcome into another episode of the Laser Bros podcast. We're your hosts, Logan and Luke Lazarchik. Today, December 13th, Friday, 2024. We had a football game last night. Wasn't too entertaining, and I know Luca fell victim to Cooper Cup, that pitiful performance of 0 catches for 0 yards. It wasn't a great game last night, and we'll be talking about those two teams here shortly. But that game last night was not a very good game of football. I think the weather kind of affected both teams, and I think both teams kind of know each other as well. And the Rams came off a game where it was a pretty physical football game against the Bills. You wonder if that played a part in their performance last night. But I know the biggest story last night for us personally was Cooper Cup not doing anything for Luke, and now he's playing Bryce Young in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, going for the boom. Bryce Young, big game against the Cowboys. Big game.
When you say Bryce Young, boom, what
he runs for like 40 yards. He gets like 30 points. I just don't see Jared Goff doing it. Jared Goff is going to get like 20 points.
The thing with Jared Goff is I think the Bills game is going to be a shootout, and we'll talk about that game here shortly as well.
Like the Bills are going to run the ball, the Lions are going to run the ball. I don't think it's going to be the same as Bills Rams. I don't think it'll be the same because that game got high scoring also because Bills were coming back and the Rams were just so on it. I'm not taking. Goff has been solid all year. Why do I think he's going to just drop a 30 bomb against one of the better teams who are coming off a bad loss?
No. If they were playing like a bad team, like let's say it was like the Tennessee game, I would get more where you're coming from because Tennessee, he didn't have to throw the ball. But I do think this is going to be a game where they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit. Now, I think they'll lean on the run game more, but I
need a lot. I need Goff is purely touchdown based. He's going to be purely touchdown based, and I'm taking the shot with Young, who's going to run and who can, I think, get touchdowns more. And I think that could be a more Jalen Coker's back. Let's throw the ball around. We almost beat the Eagles. We should have beat the Eagles. I'm taking my shot on Bryce.
Sounds like your explanation of Bryce Young kind of sounds like Anthony Richardson argument of he can.
But Anthony Richardson is playing Denver.
But he's at Denver. I totally get that.
And I'm starting Denver, so I'm going Bryce Young.
Well, let's talk about last night's game a little bit. We don't have to talk about the game itself, like I said, but we can talk about the teams. Do you want to start on the losing side or the winning side? Which team do you want
to? I'd say the losing side.
Okay. So let's talk about the 49ers. Before the season, I was not too high on them. I originally had them in my playoffs, and I was kind of begrudgingly had them as my 5 seed when we made our preseason predictions. I originally actually had them missing the playoffs or Seattle, and I ended up taking Seattle out and playing Chicago in, which was a terrible mistake. But the 49ers, their season's done. They're 6-8. They pretty much have to win out to just have. I believe they have a 1% chance of making the playoffs. That's what they're given right now. They still have Miami coming up, Detroit, and I believe Arizona. I don't think they're going to win all 3 of those games. For me, the 49ers, I think this year's done. It's kind of about looking forward. I think Debo's gone. Trent Williams has been kind of banged up this year. I think they kind of have to hit the reset button. Not a total rebuild, but I do think they have to change the way they build their football team because they've invested first-round picks and receiver. Like they invested in first-round pick and Pearsall. And I think next year they'll roll out Pearsall, Jennings, and Ayuk, who's coming off an ACL. But I really think that they may have to move off some pieces here. And I think they have to invest in the offensive defensive line pretty heavily in the draft, this upcoming draft.
I honestly think so. This year's done. They had really bad luck. If you're just going down their cap for next year, Trent Williams was hurt this year. I think Ward was, Bosa was, Warner's been dealing with a broken foot. Debo just sucked. He's done. Kittle was hurt. Greenlaw just came back. Hargrave missed the entire season. McCaffrey has basically missed the entire season. Ayuk's missed basically the entire season. So yeah, they've had a lot of injuries, and they're still 6-8, and they still sort of won some games. So I honestly think they're fine. And if you look at their free agents, they have Travarius Ward. He'd probably have to get paid a good amount, but they have $65 million cap. Greenlaw, I don't think you're gonna have to pay Greenlaw a ton, but you got to sign him back. And then Devondre Campbell, he's done after what happened last night.
He's probably cut by today. I'm thinking.
Yeah, he's done. You can't do that. And then Aaron Banks. Then everyone else who you see, I mean, is not really big deals. Um, Isaac Yadam at corners play 53% of snaps, but you could re-sign him for not much. So, assuming they get everyone healthy, you're going to look next year at the beginning, and I think the real question will be is does everyone just get older and plummet as players? If that happens, then you're screwed. But I honestly think they're still going to be a really good team. You're probably not paying Brock Purdy this offseason. I still think he's looked good, but he's last night was not good in the rain, and that's a legit problem. So, but I still think they're going to be fine. I think you have to draft a lineman first round. If you're not doing that, I don't know what you're doing. I don't think you need to get running back. Just trust McCaffrey, and I mean Isaac Garendo looked good, and so they'll find running backs. But yeah, I agree. D line, you're gonna get Hargrave back, but you need a
But
lineman first.
when you look at defensive linemen outside Nick Bosa, they don't really have a pass rush, so they
Yeah,
need to get another edge rusher, I believe. For me, and we've disagreed on this pretty much the entire time. If I'm the 49ers, I I'm not paying Brock Purdy with anything that starts with the number 4. I'm just not. Like, if
the
I'm
cap's going up. I think
because
you're.
here's the thing. I understand that they've had a lot of injuries this year. Like, I totally recognize that. Very unlucky. Basically, their entire roster is hurt. But this is what's going to look like down the road if you pay Brock Purdy. It's not the roster's not going to be as loaded as it is when you and I
don't
don't
think
know if
that's
he
right.
I don't think he's truly an elevator of the. I think he's a solid quarterback, but I do not think he elevates the pieces around him. I think when he has a bunch of talent, he looks really good. And as you saw last night, when there's some pieces missing, which I totally understand, that's a fair defense of Brock Purdy. But when he doesn't have his full lineup of weapons, he doesn't look that great. Like he's fine, but like last night, I think he was 14-31, and I know Stafford struggled too last night in the rain. But like Purdy has 15 touchdowns this year, 9 picks. It's not been a great year for Purdy, and I think that's kind of where I stand from. Like when I said this year that their Super Bowl window is closed, this is kind of what I was talking about. Now I didn't think the injuries were going to pile up like they have, but last year, like the NFC right now, I didn't think Minnesota's going to be as good. They're clearly good. If J.J. McCarthy comes in, now you can actually spend more money. Because I think Darnold's going to get a big contract somewhere else. And so you're going to roll J.J. McCarthy in there. Green Bay's super young. Detroit's who they are. I think Chicago, if they get the right coach, will be good. Seattle, I truly think is a quarterback away from being really good. We'll see. Now this year, this offseason is kind of tough to address that position because it's not a great quarterback draft. But I think the NFC it's really improving, and the 49ers are getting really old and really banged up. And I think if you pay Brock Purdy, if I'm paying Brock Purdy, it's going to be somewhere in the Baker Mayfield field, like 3 years, 100. Like I'm not paying him north of $40 million a year. I just don't
Okay,
feel comfortable with it.
here's an example of that the Giants paid Daniel Jones $40 million. And they kind of suck, but they still could have signed people. Barkley was $1 million more. They could have done that. They signed Brian Burns. They signed multiple linemen. I don't think this. Oh, you signed someone for 40, and that's with the cap lower. I don't. The cap is going to raise by like 30 mil within 2 years. So guess what? That's where you slot Brock Purdy in for most of it, and then and then the lineup's going to change a lot, and they'll probably get younger. So I think signing Brock Purdy to 40 million is not a problem. I just
So
think that's a you're just looking at it like, oh, 40 million is a lot, but the cap gets higher. 40 million in 2 years is probably like compared to like 30 million 2 years ago. Like it's a solid amount, but he's a good solid quarterback. You have to pay someone. Are you going to switch quarterbacks again and just continue this
I
cycle of quarterbacks?
no
40
that's
million is
okay.
not bad.
That's the thing. I like 49ers. Their Kyle Shanahan and 49ers. Their strategy has been let's draft or build around a really cheap quarterback and load up the roster, and it hasn't worked. And I think if you keep I get where you're coming from, where if you keep doing that, you're probably going to keep paying a wall. But at the same time, like I said, I don't think Brock Purdy is an X factor. I don't think he elevates the players around him. I think it's more about the players around him that elevate him. And so for me, I'm just not comfortable paying him. Like if I'm a 49, if I was a 49ers fan or if I was a front office person, I would not be comfortable paying him. He's been hurt 2 to 3 years. Now this year he's a bit banged up. It wasn't as bad as when he tore his UCL in his elbow, but he's been hurt 2 to 3 years. I just don't. I don't know. He's a smaller player, smaller athlete. We've seen he kind of struggles when there's any type of weather. such as last night. I don't know. I don't think, and like when you brought up the Giants paid Daniel Jones and they pay other people, but they weren't paying exponential amount of money to other players when they signed Daniel Jones to that contract. Saquon Barkley wasn't being paid. Like Brandon Ayuk's making $30 million a year. You have Nick Bosa, who's highest paid defensive player in the league. You have McCaffrey, who they restructured their contract, so now he's making more money. I think it's a completely different story than in New York. But I get what you're saying.
You're not. Here's the thing. Okay, 2026 is the first year where he'd be on the new contract. You make that one a lower number. By 2027, so many people are off contracts. And like Trent Williams will probably be retired at that point. That's a big number gone. McCaffrey, at that, you could save $20 million in 2027 by cutting McCaffrey. You can also do that other places, and they have $103 million at that point. So at that point, you're going to be fine. And that's like maybe the first year it's a lot of money. And you'll have 2026, you'll have to manage it a little bit, but you're capable of that. Like every team does it. So by 2027, he's making $40 million. You've already cut a ton of cap elsewhere, and you're fine. If you actually look at the over the cap, 2026 is the one tough year, but then after that, you can really mess around, and most players are done. Trent Williams is going to be gone.
But okay, but that's the other thing. Most players are done, and most of these players are really good players.
But like we saw they didn't play with nearly any of them this year, and they still they lost a ton of very close games and are 6-8, and everyone was hurt. We're talking about Brock Purdy, who in 3 years he went to the NFC title game, got hurt mid-game. I think they win that game. He doesn't get hurt. Lost to the Chiefs in overtime in the Super Bowl, and now is having a bad year when everyone's got hurt. So paying someone $40 million who's should have been to a Super Bowl, lost an overtime Super Bowl. Guess what? They had a bad year. Guess what? Most teams have a bad year, and it happens. But you build, yeah. But you don't have to pay him this offseason. So I think it's an over-discussed topic when he has another year.
Let's say next year. So we both agree that 49ers don't pay him this offseason. We both agree on that, right?
That's fine.
Okay, let's say that next year it won't be as bad as this year because of injuries. But let's say next year they go 9-8 and they scratch their way to the playoffs. Are you paying him?
Well, it depends on there's so many circumstances that we don't know what happened. So I don't think that question's very valid. What if everyone's hurt again and he scrapes them in the playoffs? We don't know what the circumstances are. So I think that's you can go scenario by scenario basis on that, but you just play out next year. They're not going to be worse next year in terms of roster talent.
I don't.
The only thing is age, but really the only old person is Trent Williams.
Well, George Kittle's getting up there too.
But George Kittle's going to be good for a while.
I don't think he's dealt with injuries. I don't think he has this
and he's
long
still really good
runway of his career. He's still very good. He's been their best. I think their best player this season probably, and by far. I think he's been actually Brock Purdy.
So I'm not worried about him next year. I'm not worried about him next year.
Okay, but also you can say the 49ers don't get worse that much next year, but I think the rest of the conference is going to keep getting better. We say that every year.
We say that every year. And you just play what you have. You just play what you have and you see what happens. I don't think this needs to be an offseason of figuring things out for the Niners. You bring back nearly everyone and you give Brock another year. They had every player even Brock was hurt. I can't think of a single good player on their team or star who didn't miss a game. So you just play it back. You play it back.
Yeah.
I think I
think he's much better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but I saw the same story at Jimmy G and the 49ers.
I know, but in 2 out of 3 years he's been to a title game and a Super Bowl, and then everyone got hurt, and they're 6-8. And he hasn't been great this year, but players have bad years.
Let's move to the other team in this competition, the Los Angeles Rams. They came off a game where they beat the Bills. They pretty much did anything they wanted to offensively. They then beat the 49ers. How good are the Rams, and how deep of a playoff run do you think they can make? Because before the year, I had them in my NFC title game, and after the first 4 games, that looked like it was a disaster of a pick. But now, I mean, when I look at the NFC, it's probably Lions, Packers, and I probably put Rams and Eagles. That's probably next 2. But I definitely could see the Rams making a run in the playoffs. I don't think they're a team that anybody's going to want to play.
Here's my thing with the Rams. So they beat the Bills. Yes, they had a great game. Teams have great games. They beat the Bills, but again, they couldn't stop the Bills at all. But the offense was feeling it. But at the same time, it's like I know Cooper Kupp, and as someone with Cooper Kupp, I think Kupp's fallen off a little. I think he has. He had a good game
I
against
agree.
New England, but that I remember that he got kind of a lucky 70-yard touchdown. Philly had 60 yards and a touchdown, but 8 catches, 11 targets to get 60 yards. New Orleans, he had 3 catches, 17 yards. Buffalo, he had 92 and a touchdown, but the touchdown came late. He really didn't do much until later, and then he did nothing last night. I think so. I'm looking at that. The defense is. I mean, Kyron Williams is
It's a
still.
very young defense.
Kyron is still only averaging 4 yards a carry. I think this is a lot of just Stafford willing it with Puka and a not great conference, and they barely beat the Saints, barely beat New England. I mean, not barely, but New England should have been closer. Got whooped by Philly. They had their good game against the Bills, but I think that's people are kind of taking that and overselling it. They can, so they have the ability to go and beat anyone on a 1-game thing, but I don't view them as a contender at all. I don't see it.
I think so. Right now, I believe right now they're technically in first place of their division because Seattle hasn't played yet, and I may be wrong.
No,
on
that
but
makes Seattle in first place because they have better win percentage.
What's Seattle?
They're 8-5. Rams are 8-6.
Okay. If Seattle loses this week, the Rams will be in first place, and I believe that will be the 3 seed. I think if they end up beating a Minnesota or a Green Bay in the first round, I can definitely see them going and winning another playoff game. Now, I think they play. I think if that happens, I think the Lions, you could probably pencil them in for the NFC title game. I think you can do that, barring any dramatic, disastrous injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they beat Minnesota or Green Bay in the first round, I think it's definitely viable that they make it to the NFC title game.
I don't think they'd beat either. I'd give them a better chance Minnesota.
Well, no, that's what I said. If they do that, I think you have to have more confidence. The Rams, to me, I think Cooper Kupp, it's kind of like the Travis Kelce situation with the Chiefs, where maybe in the playoffs they kind of lean on him more and kind of ask more of him. And kind of right now, he last night he didn't do anything. Last night, literally didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But I think in the playoff game, he's still going to be monumental for that team. I think he has lost a step a bit. I don't think he's completely fallen off, but I do agree with you that he's lost a step at least. Rams, they're very young defense. Jared Verse has been really good this year. Mm-hmm. Their rookie pass rusher from Florida State, he's been really good. They probably need to get more secondary help, but I do think in this NFC, I probably have them as, I probably third team right now. I would probably have Lions, Green Bay.
I cannot put them ahead.
Or not third. Minnesota. I'll have Minnesota ahead as well.
I can't put them ahead.
Eagles right now, and we'll talk about Eagles here next. The Eagles.
They played each other, and Eagles. They played each other, and Eagles. It wasn't close, and then Eagles went and beat Baltimore. I'm not an Eagles guy, but you can. I don't think just because the Rams had a really good game against a Bills defense does not mean they're better than the Eagles. They have not done anything impressive besides that game.
No, I think Eagles by far have a better roster, but I do not trust the coach. I do not trust the quarterback.
But
if it's a playoff game, I really don't trust them.
They let Saquon run for 255 yards.
Yeah, that's a problem. I
don't think you can put them ahead of the Eagles. I don't like the Eagles. You still can't put them ahead of the Eagles. There's a major talent gap.
No, I agree with that as well. But like I said, in the playoff game, if you told me the playoff game, Eagles. Stafford and McVay versus Sirianni and Hurts, I'm taking Stafford and McVay.
But you have the best. If that was the logic for everything, I'm taking Eagles. I don't think you can put Rams higher than 5. I don't think you can put them over Detroit or Minnesota, Green Bay, or the Eagles.
Eagles is the one team I have them over. I don't have them over Minnesota right now because Minnesota they're playing too good football right now, and they're 11-2 as a wild card, which is crazy.
I literally don't. What outside of the Bills game has been impressive?
Well, I think before that game, you probably thought that game was going to be a blowout, and then last night,
it was an impressive win, but take that away.
Okay. Last night, who do you think we didn't make a pick for last night?
I had no idea. I thought Niners, but I've always been on Niners, and I didn't know it was going to be a rainy mess, and they could have lost that game easily too. Debo had that touchdown he dropped. They had Greenlaw, and then he got hurt, and Greenlaw was playing great, and then he got hurt, and then the defense fell apart again. So. No, I just don't think that was too impressive. It was solidly impressive, but it wasn't anything major. They barely beat the Saints before that and got whooped by the Philly game before that. barely beat New England before that, lost to Miami before that, got lucky against Seattle before that. Minnesota was impressive, but I just don't see much impressiveness just because their ceiling's high, but their game to game I don't love.
I think if that first game, if they end up beating a Green Bay or Minnesota, I think you can definitely make an argument that they make the NFC title game. I'm not saying it's a get. Like I'm not saying if they win that game,
Well, yeah, but sure, but
automatically
that's
win.
if that happens. But just looking at it, I can't put them ahead of the other 4 teams, and they're still not even in the playoffs picture. It's still Seattle.
Let's pivot to the team that we were talking about, Philadelphia Eagles. Once again, late in the year, there's drama surrounding this team. Last year, they were 10-1, and stuff was leaking out. And now this year, like it's really weird. I know you barely beat Carolina, and you didn't play well at all. Like Jalen Hurts, threw for barely over 100 yards. But like they've created this whole thing by themselves. Like there was no outside noise or anything like that. You've won 9 straight, and you've self materialized a story that nobody would even know that. Like if you have these problems, it's fine if you have these problems. Like AJ Brown, if he thinks the passing game needs to improve, that's fine. But keep it in house. Brandon Graham going on a podcast and saying AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts aren't really friends anymore and don't really get along anymore. Why are we saying those type of things? And Sirianni's the head coach, and in other locker rooms, this would not be happening. But this is why Sirianni, it's so hard to trust this guy. And Jalen Hurts, I don't think he's being paid like north of $50 million a year to be a game manager with this type of talent around him. They're not asking him to throw. He's throwing like 21 times a game, and he's throwing for a little over 100 yards per game. Like I don't know. Philly, to me, I really think they're held back by their head coach and quarterback. But I think this is all about AJ Brown making a story on nothing, really. I think this falls on AJ Brown's shoulders, to be quite honest. This whole storyline.
I agree. And here's the thing. He needs the ball more. I think that's obvious. But I think that the defense and the running game of the Eagles, because their defense is legit good. And that's something I was not expecting this year. I didn't think it'd actually come to fruition. Their defense is good. But it gives them such a high floor where let's say they get the AJ Brown thing figured out and he's like such an amazing weapon. They're fine. And I not hate the Eagles, but I am not a fan of the Eagles. Just like overall how they operate, all the things like that. And just how they not a fan of like their chances, but they still are just so good. And they're 31st in the league in yards per game passing wise, but they're first in rushing. Yeah, it's a mess. I think they clearly messed it up themselves. All this drama. It's all self done.
And it's very similar time frame. Like last year they were 10-1, and then they imploded. Now I'm not saying they're going to implode, but like they're 11-2, and now all this stuff's coming out. It's kind of weird that like you have this much success, and there's still issues within the building. I think that speaks a lot about the head coach and the locker room. I really think that's what this. I don't know. Phil, like AJ Brown, I think he could be so much better. And I don't think it's just a target problem. I think like we watch AJ Brown a lot because we have him on our dynasty team. If you watch him, a lot of times he's just catching slants and hitch routes or a deep ball. Like Jalen Hurts does not throw with any anticipation. And I think AJ Brown could be so much better in this offense if he had a quarterback that could recognize coverage and throw it before he gets open. Because last week there was about 12, 15 times AJ Brown is wide open, and Jalen Hurts either takes off and runs or just checks it down because he's looking at Brown and does not throw it.
He's seriously fallen off. I mean, I still think he has it in him, but I don't know if he's gone safe or just not wanting to.
I just don't think we kind of saw this in college.
He's leaning on his run game a lot.
Yeah, like I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. There's too many good weapons on his team for him to be throwing 21 times a game and averaging a little over 100 passing yards a game.
No, it's wild.
And then like his rushing touchdown numbers, those are inflated. How much of those are from at the goal line from touch? Like how many rushing touchdowns does he have on the year? And I think I saw a stat the other day where Saquon. Okay, so Saquon,
no, 13,
I saw
13.
Okay, I saw a stat then, and I don't know if I have the numbers exactly right, but it was like Saquon's been tackled at the 1 10 times this year, He has 0 touchdowns for the
I
Wolves.
mean, when I think of Jalen Hurts rushing, I don't, because everyone talks about the tush push, but I think it's his running is not about. The thing is, he has 544 rushing yards this year. His ability to run is still impactful, and you can't take that away. You can look, the touchdowns are overflated, but it's not about the touchdowns. I think it's about the actual rushing yards. I think people talk about the touchdowns, but I think they're just wrong. They're still fine. They're on a 9-game win streak. If they go beat Pittsburgh, you would have beat Pittsburgh, good team. Carolina, who's playing well. Baltimore, good team. Rams, who people are now hyping up. Washington, who people were loving. Dallas was murder. Jacksonville game was stupidly close. You actually slowed down Cincy's offense, which no one really did, but I don't think there's Higgins, but nevertheless. So they're still looking fine. And that's like why I can't put the Rams ahead of the Eagles, because I think the Eagles' floor is so high, because last year when they fell off, it was really the defense just died. And they didn't have Saquon, and Saquon is so good. I mean, he has 124 rushing yards per game. And he probably should have 17 rushing touchdowns or something like that.
Yeah.
So I still think they're fine. Super Bowl, I'm not going to pick them go Super Bowl because of things like this. Like, if you're saying, are they fine to go Super Bowl? They have a problem, because this is why I wouldn't pick them, beat up the Lions. If you look at the Lions and the Eagles, the Lions locker room has to be the best locker room in football. That place is awesome. I mean, Dan Campbell's built the best culture maybe in football, maybe outside the Chiefs. But, I mean, that's why I just won't pick them for a Super Bowl. Unless A.J. Brown has 300 yards in the next 4 games and it doesn't make them this non-running team, because they still should be a run-first team. That's what they should be. But yeah, it's another mess, and it's so weird because they've won 9 straight.
And also with A.J. Brown, they gave him a contract, and then they restructured it. So I think he's making 34 million a year now, based off the restructure. He really has no room to be complaining. Now, I understand from a standpoint, if you're open and you're not getting the ball, I understand that frustration. But for
he's
me,
not
so
making 33 a year.
What was didn't they restructure his contract?
Okay, so obviously contract stuff gets a little weird, but 2030 is a void year, which his cap number is 53 mil, but I don't think he gets paid 53
Well, no,
mil.
he doesn't get paid 53 mil. No.
So yeah,
so it's not okay. So it's more of the
inflating
averages.
Those numbers.
Yeah,
those are highly inflating his numbers.
So the reason I was so confident in Philly winning the division this year was because of the talent on both sides of the ball. That's in the other teams in that division, I don't think had that much talent. You can say Cowboys do, but it's pretty top heavy. This league comes down to coaching and quarterback play. And if your coaching and quarterback play is subpar, your team's not going to go that far. Your talent can only take you so far if your quarterback's not playing well. And I think they could be one and done. You brought up the Washington game as an impressive win. That game, I don't know if you remember that game. That game was a terrible game.
Well, it's just another win in their 9-game win streak. I'm not saying it was a super impressive win, but they beat a team who was playing well.
When we were watching. But
that's what I'm saying about their floor. Their floor is so high because they didn't play well.
But their floor isn't that. But okay,
that's the point.
But scoring wise, they're not scoring astronomical amount of points. They scored 22 against
That's
Carolina.
Not what a floor. The floor doesn't mean you score a lot of points. They're stopping everyone from scoring, is my point. And they're running the ball and taking time off the clock. I think that gives them a high floor. If they had a low floor, they'd be losing one of these 9 games. I don't love them, but their floor is high. When you have the best rushing game and one of the best defenses, it gives you a high floor. It's literally like Chiefs with Alex Smith had a high floor, but a low ceiling. This is just a better version of that.
So I'm looking at the playoff. I'm looking at the playoff picture right now. So if Philly's a 2 seed, if they end up getting Washington in the first round, they probably win that game, even if that's a third-time meeting. I think at home, Washington, I don't think is that. Washington, I think it's been very impressive what they've done, because I don't think they have that much high-end talent. Jay Daniels, really good. Terry McLaurin, really good. Brian Robinson, very solid. But there's not a lot of high-end talent on the team. So I think Philly would beat them. But if for some reason, Green Bay slipped to a 7 seed, which I don't think happens at all.
Yeah, I think Green Bay's super good.
Or if the Rams are a 7 seed against Philly, if they somehow get, I do not. Philly matches up well, but if you told me, I don't think anybody really wants to play Rams in the playoffs if they get in the playoffs. I
I'm
just
still
don't think
taking
anybody wants
Eagles.
to.
Unless you're Detroit, Green Bay, or Minnesota, I'm gonna pick Eagles to win the game in the NFC. But that just means I don't think they're going to the title game, probably because I think the
Well, no,
divisional round would consist of Detroit, Minnesota, and Green Bay. So you face one of them, but I don't. I'm picking them against everyone else.
I think
Unless it just falls apart again. But at the moment, I'm picking them because they're just really high floor. They're a better version of those Chiefs teams we used to watch.
I think at most they win one playoff game.
I mean, unless they get lucky, and I don't think that's at most. I don't think you'd say that because what if they figure out the passing game? What if AJ Brown? They're just like, okay, AJ, we're just gonna give you some balls and we're gonna run.
Those are what ifs. But like right now,
But at most,
if I make
one
a guess,
game
I say they win one playoff game and they lose divisional round.
I mean, that's my guess, but at most, one game is kind of they're the best rushing team in the league and one of the best defenses. You can't at most one game. They could still get the 1 seed.
Let's say and we'll move on after here soon. Let's say they win one game and then lose. Is Sirianni's job in jeopardy?
I don't know. I don't love Sirianni as a coach, but
no, I don't either. In Philadelphia, we've seen they are not hesitant to move.
Yeah,
they'll make like Carson Wentz. They gave the contract to. They quickly moved off of him. I could see that they won't move off Hurts after this year, but I can see in a year or two that they move off Hurts and Sirianni. You can't because of the money. But I think Sirianni, if you win one game and then lose, I think Sirianni's out of there just because of all this noise that we hear every year. And
I mean, if you lose let's say you face Detroit for some reason, even though let's say you face Green Bay and you lose 30-27, Sirianni's probably not fired if Green Bay's really good.
I don't know.
If you lose a really close Green Bay game, I don't know. I'm not a Sirianni guy, but I mean,
Doug Peterson, he won a Super Bowl and they fired him. And I know Doug Peterson's not that good. I think both of us agree that he's not that good of a head coach. But he won a Super Bowl and they fired him 2 years later.
No, I know, but I would want to make sure hey, Ben Johnson. See, if they go through some back channels hey, we get Ben Johnson. It's yep, Sirianni gone, sign the check, Ben Johnson, let's go win.
Okay, Mike Vrabel or
Mike Vrabel's a better coach. Yeah,
or Sirianni. I think there's Sirianni. I do not think is that good of a coach, and there's
Mike Vrabel would be an interesting coach
that you can because I also think Ben Johnson. I think the only question that many people have around him is he a culture setter or is he just is he a really good offensive mind? Now,
obviously he hasn't set a culture yet. That's been Dan Campbell.
No, but head coaches, you have to have a personality to set a culture. Vrabel, I think it's a very safe hire if they went that route.
Yeah,
because he can set a culture, and you kind of already have you can have Kellen Moore stay there if you want, and then you can have just Vrabel set the culture. It's a defensive culture still. I just think Sirianni. I don't unless they make a run to the NFC title game. I don't see him staying there next year. I just don't.
If they lose a close divisional game, we'll see. If they get blown out by the Pack, let's say they lose 20 or 33-17. Yeah, he's probably fired. But Ben Johnson, the fact that he stayed with Detroit when he could have got a head coaching job, it kind of tells me a lot about his character that I like. And he's been under Dan Campbell. And you don't think Dan Campbell, with how great of a guy he isn't
I'm not saying at all. But I'm saying
so. Yeah, but I'm not. I have no fear hiring Ben Johnson. If it fails, it fails.
Well, so Ben Johnson, he prioritizes a good ownership. So I think Philly would make a lot of sense because they do have good ownership. Chicago, if I'm a Chicago fan.
You're not keeping Ben Johnson.
That's what I'm saying. That kind of scares me about Ben Johnson going there if he doesn't trust ownership. And the whole, Ryan Poles has to, what's the guy's name?
Kevin
Big
Warren.
Ten guy. Yeah, Kevin Warren. Did you watch that press conference at all?
No, yeah, that's a mess. The
vibes are not good there. Ryan Poles looked, I don't know if I want to say timid, but he took the back seat in that press conference when most of the time when you fire a coach, the GM is taking control of that press conference following that firing. So Chicago, I think is a mess. Philly makes sense for Ben Johnson. I actually think he may be intrigued by that because of the talent they have. I also know I don't trust Sirianni. I don't trust Jalen Hurts. That's why I just I think Philadelphia's going to obviously win their division, but I can see one and done based on a matchup, and then I don't see them winning a second playoff game. I don't see it.
We'll see. I'm giving it time to see if they figure this out with AJ Brown.
Let's move on to the final story. We talk about Bill Belichick going to North Carolina. I was shocked when I heard North Carolina and Bill Belichick were talking about contract. It's very hard for me to envision Bill Belichick going to college. And college is a completely different game than the NFL.
But it's.
I think you're more confident. I think you're more confident than me if the transition.
Oh, for sure, because I respect one of the best coaches of all time, and I said, you know what? Let's have fun. I think Bill Belichick. I saw there's some guy who's like a Patriots guy who's like 20 years ago. He predicted that Bill Belichick would, after his NFL stint, go to college because he loves teaching and he loves the actual coaching process. And there's nothing more where you can probably coach as much as in college in terms of like building people up. I think it's fun. Obviously, I don't know if an NFL team is going to give him GM responsibilities. And it seemed like that's something he really wanted in the NFL, even though he did hire Michael Lombardi for North Carolina's GM. You probably have to have one. I think it's fun. I think that if you're looking at it like, oh, this sucks, then you're a loser. And because I want to see what he does. It's not a strong conference in the ACC. Clemson's probably the biggest threat, I'd say, even though.
But the thing is, with Clemson, they don't go after transfer. Like they don't utilize the transfer.
I was thinking about that.
If they don't get recruits, and I know they've bounced back a little bit this year late in the season, but
I'm not the biggest.
I agree. The ACC is pretty weak.
But I'm not the biggest Dabo guy. But on that, but like, sorry, like you look at someone like I went to K-State. K-State basketball. I know basketball, football are different, but K-State basketball, they're just bringing in transfers. Guess what? There's no continuity. In K-State basketball, it looks terrible. They do. They look really bad.
Well, no, okay, but and I don't mean to
interrupt. But okay, I'm not. But you are interrupting.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to finish my point here. But so the thing with Clemson, they're going to get recruits, and the thing is, they're going to have. I don't love how resistant he is to it, but they're going to have the best continuity in all of college football. Clemson, because they're not switching out all the time, and they're building players up.
Players are transferring out.
But I don't think. But I think he's probably like, hey, stay here because we're building up. And Clemson players don't have to worry about transferring as much because they don't have to worry about as many transfers coming in. So so not as many players would transfer because they don't have to worry about the transfer portal bringing in more players. So I don't love what he's doing, but I kind of see how it could work and it could keep them afloat because they're going to have this continuity and they're going to build up actual. Like, did you know who Boise State's backup quarterback is?
To be honest, I
Malachi Nelson. You remember him? He was the number one recruit and he went to USC, but then he lost to Miller Moss. Mm-hmm. Boise State is the number 3 team in the country, and they have the number 1 recruit from 2023 class on their team, but he doesn't play. Now he's in the transfer portal, but imagine he just stuck it out at USC. He'd probably be a lot better because of continuity. So I do think that's something that Clemson has. But back to North Carolina, I mean, if Clemson's your biggest worry, you have a shot. And it seems like they're going all in on football at North Carolina, so they may hit the transfer portal. Freddie Kitchens is staying. I know he wasn't a good head coach for the Browns, but he was pretty good. But he was pretty good as OC. Just some people aren't meant to be head coaches. Freddie Kitchens is probably one of them. So I'm very interested. North Carolina's had some good teams over the years, so I don't think they have like this, like, oh, we haven't been good. They have somewhat of a foundation. They've had 2 top 3 picks at quarterback previous 7 years, so they got something. I'm going to watch North Carolina college football next year. I'll tell you that.
I will as well. The only so Nick Saban, really good college coach, tried the NFL, failed. Bill Belichick, very good NFL coach. We'll see what he does in college. It's 2 completely different landscapes. Like relating to play, it's much younger players. Bill Belichick at times had a hard time relating to players like in their mid-20s, and now you're trying to relate to 18, 19, 20-year-olds. I think that's something to watch. That's something where I do not know if this works. Now, I'll be intrigued because it's an all-time great coach who's won 7 Super Bowls as a head coach going to the college level. I just don't necessarily think – I do not know if it works. And I was very surprised that he took this job. I thought when I first heard him talking North Carolina, I thought it was more about building the leverage to try to get some NFL teams to get some interest in him. Now reports are there's no NFL teams were really looking at Bill Belichick, which was something I've been saying. I just don't think at this point, I don't think teams are really interested in Bill Belichick. The way it ended in New England, I think Robert Kraft that documentary really made a pretty bad impact on Bill Belichick, right? Or I think they did Belichick
they were
wrong there.
slandering it. And look at
No,
New
no, no,
England.
no, no. I think they did. I think
they
they did him wrong. But I think the way it ended in New England and the reason he wants to have power and player personnel, and he's just not good at player personnel. We'll see if it works in North Carolina. I don't think it's going to be like right away. If it ends up working, I don't think it's going to be right away. It's just going to be a slam dunk. Like I could see them being, 7 or how many they play 12 games in the regular season in college, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can see them being like 7-5, 6-6 his first year. Because
here's the thing. Okay,
we'll
you can
see.
but I mean, you're seeing just like a lot of good coaches win games just because they're good coaches. Like look at Indiana. I always forget his last name. Kurt.
But in college, a lot of these coaches are like a lot of the new coaches that are coming in are like young guys, offensive guys who relate to players. I don't know. Belichick is a total
that's not
opposite.
My point. I'm making. First off, I think that Bill Belichick showed a lot of personality while in the media, and I think that could help him. He showed a lot of personality. He's already said he's building a program that is building players to make the NFL. And I think that's important that he's doing that. So it's like John Calipari, but Bill Belichick actually fully knows what he's doing. But if you look at coaches like Lance Leipold at KU, I mean, I know they weren't great this year, but they lost a ton of close games. Last year, they improved a lot. He's just a good football coach. Chris Kleiman, K-State, he's a good football coach. He's won previously. Kurt, whatever his last name is, at Indiana, he has an insane record. He comes to Indiana, who's nothing, and now they're in the college football playoff. SMU is a good coach. They came from not much, and now they're in the playoff. I think just good coaching is working in college football because there's so much transfer portal and young players and mistakes, where if you just have a coach, if the North Carolina locker room buys in, I think they're going to be good just because they're going to be so much better coach than anyone else. I mean, like, because you look at teams who like Miami, like what happened, like they just had some talent. Like,
yeah. Well, no, they're about to lose Cam Ward. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I could see Bill Belichick would go in and not whoop Miami, but I think he'd go and beat Miami.
SMU and Clemson are probably the two biggest competitors.
No, yeah, but SMU, they may be better. See, like the thing about Clemson, like I'm not a big Cade Klubnik guy, but he's had moments, but he's getting another year in the system, and I think that's a positive because he's very raw. But I mean, he had 33 touchdowns, 5 picks, so he's had moments. So I don't hate it. I mean, I don't hate what Clemson's
we'll see
doing,
because here's the thing. Like the reason Nick Saban, one of the reasons he's retired was the transfer portal and the players not really caring about the culture and all that, but how much money can you pay him. And that was Nick Saban and at Alabama. Like
I mean, he's won like 6 national titles at Bama, so I think for him to transition, because he was already doing this, and then him to transition when he didn't want to, I think Bill Belichick wants to coach college, and they're taking care of it financially. So this is something new for him, which he took a year off. He's going to be all in, man. He's going to be all in.
I was watching a podcast last night. They actually, apparently in the contract, there's a buyout after June 1st of 2020, which is very, he's not going to leave. But I think it's just very interesting that there's a buyout after June 1st.
I mean,
he definitely had that in there.
Yeah, just in case. I mean, and I do think a part of it is like he wants his son to get a head coaching opportunity. He's probably going to once he's done. But Bill Belichick loves football, and great coaches, when they love football, I want to see it, and I'm excited. It adds a whole new wrinkle to college football. And guess who the first team to play?
Wait, did they have the schedule out?
They schedule. I don't think they have a week by week basis, but these college football schedules are made like years in advance. But the first team they face is TCU, and TCU was also the first team to face Colorado with Deion Sanders. And that's another thing. If you look at Deion Sanders, that was something that was highly questioned, and I know that he has 2 of the best talents in college football, but they were nearly a playoff team. after everyone, I mean, I was big on Dion when it started, and then after like halfway through last year, I was like, okay, this is done. But then it was working this year for the most part. Lose a close KU game, but I'm excited. I think it's fun, and he's a he's just cool. I think Bill Belichick's cool. I don't care what people say. He's cool. You watch him on all the podcasts he goes on Monday Night Football, which I wonder if he's going to do any more of that. I wonder if he's just
Probably
cut and
he
dry
probably
all.
he may be focused on North Carolina job now.
That's interesting. But I wonder
If
if he'll
he's
make some
if he's truly
appearances.
all in, he's going to focus on
Okay,
North Carolina
no,
stuff.
because that's no, that's not a. If he's truly all in, people still make appearances while they coach teams
Maybe he finishes
mid-season.
out the year on doing the Monday night stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't do it though.
I mean, yeah, we'll see. I want him to do it because he's fun.
Let's move to our Week 15 picks. Our picks last week, I was not great. Money line, I was 9-4, and then spread, I was 3-9-1. I was not good against the spread last week. Not great at all. But let's start with what did you go last week?
Well, okay, I think the ties go in the middle of the wins and losses. That's what I thought.
Wait,
So like 5, 1, and 7.
wait, how does money line get a tie?
Oh, I'm talking about on spread, and then money line I
Oh.
was 8 and 5.
Yeah, spread, I was pretty bad. That was horrendous. Let's start with the first game. Bengals at the Titans. Bengals are -5.
I watched the Titans. I'm, again, not high on the Bengals at all, but I watched the Titans. I needed them to get to 17 points. Unless they say Will Levis chuck the ball, because I think they have obviously, if you watch them, they've said Will Levis stop turning over the ball. But I think at this point, just let it rip. But I don't think they
you're
will.
3-10. Your most important job right now is to see if Will Levis is the guy. And
I think Will Levis could be a guy. I think Will Levis could be a guy who turns into a backup and Sam Darnold, Geno Smith-like as possible in his career to like pick it up later. But I Bengals -5. I mean, I just have to.
Yeah, Bengals -5 is a pretty easy pick for me. I do not know how good Coach Brian Callahan is. I don't even know if he's even that good of a coach. He leaves Bengals and they still are explosive offense. I don't know how much of an impact he actually had on that offense.
I mean, I don't have negative thoughts on him because they beat the Texans, and he has a weird situation. So I'm not out on him, but I'm not in. I'm still pretty indifferent on Brian Callahan. I don't think he was given a lot.
I mean, if I have to make a guess, I just don't think it works out in Tennessee. That's probably my I have Bengals winning this one -5. I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to keep up with them. And Will Levis is if Will Levis is forced to throw, he probably will start turning the ball over. Like last week,
he also could throw some buttes. He can also throw some buttes. They need to have a more aggressive mentality if they want to win the game. And if they do, I think they could win, but I just don't think they will.
Commanders at the Jets. Commanders -7.5. No Derek Carr this week. Still no Chris Olave. Oh, I say Jets? Yeah. Why did I say Jets? Commanders?
You said Commanders at Jets, yes.
Oh, Commanders at Saints. And Commanders are favored by 7.5. No Derek Carr. Still no Chris Olave.
Yeah, I'm taking Commanders. Commanders looked really good. I mean, I know they beat the hell out of the Titans, and there's a lot of bad luck going on with Titans that game, like multiple early fumbles, and they have a bye week, so I'm just going Commanders.
Yeah, this is a pretty easy pick. I mean, Saints barely beat the Giants last week with Derek Carr basically playing the entire game. This is pretty easy. I don't really have any worries about this one. Commanders' money line is definitely easy. It's just a spread, but I think they cover it pretty comfortably. Ravens at the Giants. Ravens coming off a bye. Lamar Jackson dominant against NFC teams. No Drew Lock this week. Tommy DeVito's going to be starting. I don't know how healthy Malik Neighbors is at this point. And the Ravens are favored by 16.
I'm also taking the Ravens -16. I don't have much analysis on them. I'm trying to think. Looking at the stats, it's just Ravens are going to bounce back. They've been a little off. I think this is where they go try to kill someone.
Yeah, and I think they need a game like this where they just beat up on somebody. They're coming off a bye. I don't like them taking all these favorites right now, spread wise, but I'm going to take Baltimore minus
We had
16.
this. We
And
had the
16's a
same
lot.
thought.
16's a lot of points, but I just don't. I think
Yeah.
if Ravens scored 24 points, I mean, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know if Giants. I don't know if Giants get to 10 points this game. And Derrick Henry hasn't scored in a couple weeks. He's my guaranteed anytime touchdown score of the week.
Oh wow,
Like,
Derrick Henry.
He hasn't scored 2 weeks.
Well, okay, but that's a lame pick if you're gonna pick one.
Okay, well, I'm saying if you're gonna bet it. Okay, fine. How about 2 touchdowns?
There you go.
I'll do Derrick Henry 2 touchdowns this week. Cowboys against the Panthers. Panthers -3. The first time they've been favored, and I believe 2 or 3 years now.
Hey,
Yep.
I've already said I'm starting Bryce Young, so there's no way I'd start Bryce
I really
Young.
wish I was facing you fancy this week. Be a free
I had a bad start. Hey, it's desperate times. When you score 4.1 points when you're top 2, I guess I don't know if it's top 2, but Jawan's been a 1. And
I mean, you have Drake London
and Judy.
And Judy. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but then Bucky Irvin probably won't play, so Isaiah Davis may be my running back. Yeah, but I'm taking Panthers. They're playing well. You could make an argument they could have been 3-0 in their last 3 games against 3 teams vying for the playoffs. So Bryce Young, major Bryce Young game. They gave my boy Jalen Coker back. That's exciting. I'm really big on him. And now you got Thielen, Leggett, Coker. I know Leggett dropped the ball, but I still think he shows some promise. I think Leggett does need a year. So, but yeah, I'm going Carolina. I'm going Carolina -3.
This feels like such a trap game. It really does.
I don't care.
But I'm going to take Panthers in this one. The Cowboys vibes, it feels like the Bears a few weeks ago when they lost that Hail Mary game and 1 loss turned into 2 losses. The way the Cowboys lost that last game with the block punt and the fumble, it feels like that loss could carry over to this game as well. So I'm going to take the Panthers -3. This could be a game, though, where it could be a push where Cowboys lose by 3, but Carolina still wins.
Yeah, I prefer that's closer, so Bryce Young has to keep throwing.
Like Carolina's been playing really good football lately. Bryce Young's figured some things out. I think he's earned the starting role for at least 1 more year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And with a weak quarterback class, he'll definitely be the starter next year.
I'm all the way back in on Bryce, by the way. I loved him as the first pick. I'm all the way back in. I'm all back in.
Bryce Young.
Carolina next year. I may bet them to win division.
Bryce Young or Jalen Hurts moving forward?
Bryce Young. That's easy.
Okay.
I think Bryce Young could be really good.
No, because also, so for me, and I don't mean to get on a side tangent, but like when I evaluate quarterbacks, it may be at the top of my list, but throwing with anticipation it's a really big check mark on the checklist for me.
My number one thing is
Bryce Young throws with a lot of anticipation.
Anticipation and feel is similar, but it's not the same. But they go hand in hand a little bit. But it's about feel.
Next game, Jets at the Jaguars. I'm kind of surprised by this line because Evan Ingram was just announced that he's out for the rest of the year with a torn labrum. Thank God we didn't pay for him in Dynasty.
Yeah.
Jets are favored by 3.5 this one. I'm actually kind of shocked that it's only 3.5.
Yeah, I have Jets killing them. I have Jets slaughtering the Jags.
Mac Jones. Yeah, well, like Jaguars last week, they won 10-6, but like that game was that the worst football game we've ever watched? Like
it was up there. There's probably been worse. But that was up there as long as like what I could think of right now.
I mean, week 13 was great football. Last week, the noon games were horrendous. Like I was actually not enjoying myself. And usually football, I can watch any type of football and it'll be some level of enjoyment. But the noon games were terrible. Jets, I don't think they're going to finish the year 3-14. I don't think they're going to keep losing every single game. And I think Jaguars at this point, Doug Peterson knows he's out of the building.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you don't have Evan Ingram now, so now it's Brian Thomas Jr., and that's about it. So I'm going to take it. And I think Sauce Gardner is going to be coming back in this one. I don't think Breece Hall is going to come back, but Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen showed enough that they could. And Jets were actually pretty solid last week.
That's what I'm saying.
They should probably beat the Dolphins last week.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Speaking of Dolphins, that's the next game we'll talk about. Dolphins at the Texans. Texans -3. Texans coming off the bye. How do you see this one playing out? I think I know the pick you're making this one. This probably will be our first disagreement.
I'm very I don't know if you know what I'm saying.
You're
I'm
picking
very
Dolphins.
50-50 on this game, but I'm going Texans, but I'm going Dolphins to cover +3, so I'm expecting
Okay.
like a +3.5 would be nice.
Yeah.
But I'm riding with the +3. Maybe a cheeky bet. Texans win, Dolphins +3. It's I have no idea. I'm like excited, but I also think it could be bad football at the same time. And it's it's kind of impactful because let's say the Colts beat Denver and Miami wins, and then Miami still has a shot, and so it's still impactful. And Texans kind of guarantee they're the 4 seed if they lose.
Well, I think Texans clinch the division if they win.
Oh, I mean, but I'm just saying, like, I guess
Or
the
maybe they don't.
division,
Maybe they
the
don't. Maybe they don't.
division. I remember talking about this. Division could be in danger for them, but they beat Colts twice, so it'd have to be. But they do face Chiefs
I
and
think. I think.
Dolphins.
I think if they beat Dolphins and Colts lose, I believe they clinch the division.
Oh,
I believe
but
Dolphins win.
if they lose and Colts win, you're then like, man, Colts have an easy schedule. Man, Texans have a
And
tough
Texans have the Chiefs
schedule.
next week. So and they still play Baltimore as well.
No, yeah,
Um,
it could be interesting.
I'm gonna take Texans in this one. Coming off a bye, their main weakness is their offensive line, and Dolphins do not possess any sign of a pass rush, and so I don't think they're gonna be able to exploit that.
Did Chop Robinson get hurt too?
Yes,
Because
he
I
did.
think he's been like looking better, and like it was like, oh, he's progressing, but
And I think she at
I don't
home.
think
No,
he's hurt though. I don't think he's hurt. I think he
I
got
do.
hurt, but
I do think this game because Texas pass rush. I mean, Dolphins offensive line's not good. You have Will Anderson. You have Daniil Hunter. I think Texas. This could be a blowout game. I'm gonna take Texas -3, but I do think Miami in a dome. Tua plays well when it's not cold. I do think this has a high potential of being a shootout, but I could also
here's
see Texans winning it pretty handedly as well. But
Texans
they
have
haven't won
0
handedly in a
sacks
while.
against the Jags.
Yeah, that game was not like a good game by any means
Yeah,
for Texans.
0 sacks.
Colts at the Broncos. A lot of these teams we were talking about in the previous games. Denver -4. Both teams coming off a bye. I think it's actually a very interesting game this week.
Yeah, I do have Denver winning, but I have Colts covering. I think it's a close one. I think that there is a chance, though, Denver slaughters them if Anthony Richardson just gets confused by the defense. Denver was on bye last week, right?
Both teams run by. Yeah.
Yeah. See, both teams are on bye, but I have Denver winning, but Colts covering. Another one of those. I'm kind of. I have. Yeah, that's honestly maybe the game I'm most looking forward to.
I have the same thing as you. Broncos winning, Colts covering. I think we have everything the same right now. To be honest, I chose Colts to cover this game because I've chose every favorite to cover so far. So I needed at least one underdog to cover. For me, like most teams, they benefit from a bye week. I think Richardson, it actually doesn't do him much favors to be playing off a bye. I think he actually needs to keep playing. And so when you give him a bye week, he may lose some of his rhythm. But I do think they're going to use him more as a runner in this game. And Broncos still a young team, don't really possess a run game at all. We'll see if McLaughlin carries over his success from last week or the last time they played 2 weeks ago against the Browns. But the Browns have one of the worst run defenses. So I'm going to say Broncos win, but I do think there's a potential that Colts keep this close and potentially could upset the Broncos in this one. Just by there's always shocking games and it could happen. Bills at the Lions. Lions -2.5. The over/under is 54.5.
How did I skip writing that game down?
But that's probably the game of the week. Yeah, you had.
I know.
Did you have Colts? Yeah, what? You said
I
Colts
don't know
Broncos was
how-
the game you're looking.
I don't know how that just like went right past my radar when I was looking at the games. I don't know what happened there.
When you mentioned Jared Goff, you must have really just tried to convince yourself not to play him.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. But I do have Bills in this one. Would not touch this betting wise. I'm just watching it, not touching it at all. I'm not even breaking it down. I just think Bills defense was really bad. I think they bounced back. Lions had some close games. I think they eventually lose a game. That's all my analysis. Not like, oh, I love Bills. It's just fun game. That's the best game of the week.
Lions they're constructed almost the same exact way as the Lions. They want to run the ball. They have two great running backs. I think it's going to be the same formula as the Rams pulled off. I think Lions are going to bully them in the rushing attack. Now, Lions defense, we'll see. That's why I think this game is going to be a shootout, is because Lions defense injuries on the defensive side have really taken a toll, and they're really falling off defensively, and that's why they're playing all these close games. But I'm going to take Lions at home this one. Minus 2.5, I think, is a great line. I may bet this game. I'm not sure yet, but I think Lions are just going to bully the Bills in the rushing attack.
The Bills didn't
have
get entirely bullied. 3.3
but
yards carry.
Bills have one of the okay. Kyron Williams not as efficient as a runner. We have Gibbs and Montgomery.
No, but I just don't think it was this bullying.
And Bills already have a pretty bad run defense. Like, they're not a good defensive run team or run defensive team. So I think the Lions are going to lean on the run game, and I think Jared Goff is going to have a lot of open throws in the middle field off of play action. I think Josh Allen's going to have to put the super cape on again. It was really weird. Bills only gave James Cook 6 carries last week.
Well, they were down a lot, and they're just throwing. And Josh Allen runs for scrambles a lot.
But I think the Bills are starting to slide over a little over the fence of
they've lost one game. They lost one game, man. The game before, James Cook ran for 107. Ray Davis ran for 63. It was one game.
We'll see. If they lose this one, and we'll talk about have we talked about? Oh, that's next game actually.
It's one game.
And Steelers win. It's gonna be very interesting.
It was one
I'll
game.
take Lions minus 2.5. Steelers at the Eagles. Eagles minus 5.5. I believe there will be no George Pickens in this game. No Dallas Goedert for the Eagles, I believe, also on the offensive side of the ball. How do you see this one playing out?
See, with everything I was saying, how I was kind of positive about the Eagles, I'm taking Steelers in the upset.
Okay.
But I could also see them getting killed. Okay, because I can stay positive but not have this I think they're going to win the next game. And sometimes a loss is good. Like how a loss, I think, was good for the Bills. How I think Lions losing could be good for them. And I think how Eagles losing could be good for them if they lose. But, yeah, I like Tomlin in this situation. I feel like this is a Mike Tomlin game. And I'm literally either Steelers win close or Eagles kill them. That's my two scenarios.
So we pretty much have opposite feelings about this game. I have Eagles winning by the Steelers covering. I would probably almost pick the Steelers in this one if George Pickens was healthy. But I just think George Pickens not being there is a really big loss for his offense. You kind of saw it last week at Cleveland. Their offense kind of sputtered at times. Now, they still put up 27 points, but when James Winston gives you the ball in plus territory a couple times, you're going to do that. I think the Eagles are going to win this one, but I do think it's going to be a close game because I don't trust the Eagles' offense entirely. And I think Pittsburgh's defense can't stop the run game to an extent. We'll see. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I don't think the over hits on the over-under is 43. I'll take the under in this one. This feels like a 20-17 game.
See, I have that with Steelers. Wait, so are you picking Steelers to cover?
Yes. But I said the Eagles win.
Mm-hmm.
Patriot. Oh, I skipped the Chiefs game. Hold on.
Yeah,
Chiefs at Browns.
The game too.
Okay, so what the Yahoo app? I have Chiefs as one of my teams.
Yeah.
So they don't put it in the noon slot. It's always at the top, no matter what time they play. So I always skip it. So Chiefs at Browns. Chiefs are favored by 4. Over-under is also 43. So that Vegas expects a kind of low-scoring game this one. Which I guess every Chiefs game's the same.
I've picked against the Chiefs to win, to cover, and when I picked against them to cover, I've done quite well. Picking against them to lose, I've done 1 and 2. It's not bad.
You picked against them last week, I believe. Chargers.
Yeah, and if that field goal went how it probably should have, Chargers win. I'm taking Chiefs to cover. Browns didn't look great. No Njoku, I think, is legit. I still don't love it, but I'm taking them cover. I don't even know it. I don't have much Chiefs analysis at this point. Let's just wait for Marquise Brown to get back.
Yeah, we actually may be at the game of Marquise Brown.
I think it'll be next week.
What, against Houston?
Yeah, I saw it this week or next.
That's what I'm saying. We'll be at the game.
I thought you were saying we are now at the game. I get what you're saying.
No, we'll be at the game. I have the Chiefs winning this one and covering as well. James Winston's a turnover machine. He's not a starting quarterback in this league. He can play 5-6 games if needed. But he turns over the ball way too much. There's no Njoku. I expect McDuffie to play a lot of coverage on Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if he follows Jerry Jeudy a lot in this one, but Jerry Jeudy does play a bulk of his snaps from the slot, and McDuffie kind of lines up in the slot a lot. I'm going to take the Chiefs in this one. I'm going to trust their defense. I'm going to trust Mahomes, and I don't trust James at all. So it's a pretty self-explanatory formula for why I believe the Chiefs will win. Next game, Patriots at the Cardinals. I don't think I'm going to look back here after the season and see how many Cardinals games I've chosen correctly. I mean, the one I know that I chose correctly was when Seattle beat Arizona in Seattle. I got that one right.
No, I have no idea which ones.
I don't know how many games I've gone right.
They're ridiculous.
They are the most frustrating team. And I have Kyler Murray on my fantasy team. He is the most frustrating quarterback I've ever watched on my fantasy team. Cardinals are favored by 6 in this one.
I'm taking Cardinals win, but I can't. 6 is a lot of points. I love Drake May. I really think Drake May could be the best quarterback in this class, and I'm getting close to leaning toward it. Like, if I had to pick one, I'm getting close to picking Drake May. He does not have the best.
That's a very reaction based.
But I loved him. But no, you're wrong. You're wrong because
you said James Daniels will be better.
Yeah, but didn't I love Drake May? But yeah, Jade.
You did love Drake May.
I love Drake May, and he's literally done nothing to prove me wrong. I was close to saying Drake May over Caleb originally. I think it may be Drake, Jaden, and then Caleb, and then Bo Nix could be 3. I mean, I'm not being reactionary. I've loved what I've seen from Drake May with, I think, the least help out of all of them by far. The coaching is similar to the Bears. It sucks. The weapons are way worse than the Bears. The O-line's probably actually worse than the Bears because Caleb makes a lot of his own sacks. But, yeah, I got him covered because I love Drake May. But Cardinals winning.
I have the same pick as well. If Cardinals winning, Patriots covering. I just don't – you can't trust Cardinals right now. This offense, it's either McBride underneath or – and I think they misutilized Marvin Harrison Jr. They're throwing all these like back shoulder fade routes to him. Those are just low percentage throws. Like, you're not going to complete a lot of those. I think they need to use him more in the middle of the field. They're not going to do that. I mean, we're 13 weeks in, 14 weeks in, and they haven't done that. I could see this game being a more high-scoring game. I could see it back and forth here, and I know that's not how the Patriots want to play. That's not, and I don't think they have the weapons to do that. But I just don't trust the Cardinals right now, and I think the Cardinals probably win just by default. But like you said, I think Drake May, I think, is proven he's going to be a very good quarterback. You give him some weapons, I think he's going to be very good.
And he also needs a new head coach. They suck.
Yeah. Buccaneers at the Chargers. Chargers are favored by 3. I believe Vlad McConkey will be playing this one. He's practiced both days. Not sure about Bucky Irby's status. He hasn't practiced Wednesday or Thursday, so I'm going to lean on the side that he doesn't play. This is a very interesting game. But
Herbert's hurt, but he's going to play. I'm taking Chargers. Their defense is too good, especially if there's no Bucky. Mike Evans is still good, but he hasn't had that game since he's came back from injury. I feel like you got to take Chargers, even though I still have my Herbert concerns as usual.
Baker Mayfield. He's thrown 4 picks in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah,
against Carolina and the Raiders. Not good defenses. And then against the Giants, he had 0 touchdowns and 0 picks. Like, he hasn't been playing fantastically. He's kind of fallen back down to earth a bit. And he's kind of a gunslinger at this point. He's going to give you a chance to catch an interception. And I'm looking at his game log right here. He has, in the last 8 games, 5 of those games he's had at least 2 interceptions thrown. And he's had 3 in one of those games.
No, yeah,
it's not a great. Yeah, in Vegas last week, I don't think Buccaneers were that impressive. They scored 14 points in the first quarter, and then didn't really do much after that. And Raiders, if Raiders had any other quarterback, they may have actually won that game. So I'm gonna take charge in this one. At home, their defense is really strong. You have Vlad McConkey back, which I think is a huge addition back to the offense after he wasn't there last week. And the Chargers almost beat the Chiefs without Vlad McConkey. So. I like charge this one. I'm pretty confident in that one.
Yeah, Baker, I think the O-line's definitely fallen. Like, Wirfs is playing hurt, and he's been sacked 4 times in each of the last 2 games. So that's not helping. Bucky's been hurt. I don't think Mike Evans is fully there, and they don't have Godwin. So yeah, they've been going through
Okay,
some
if
stuff.
you had to pick right now, who wins that
I
division?
I still think Atlanta.
I hope you're right, man.
I
hope
still
you're
think
right
Atlanta because I think
Atlanta.
Tampa's going to lose to Chargers, and I think then they're going to lose at least one of their last 3 games. And Atlanta has an easy path, so they just need to
The
win.
only game I see Atlanta losing is possibly to Washington. But
Carolina, they could lose. They can lose Carolina.
Where's the game at with Carolina?
That doesn't really matter. Home and away does not matter anymore.
Okay, can you tell
But it's at Atlanta. But home and away means like nothing to me, except in college sports. In pros, it literally doesn't matter. Like unless there's weather.
Packers at Seahawks. This is another line I'm kind of shocked by. I'm shocked that
I like Packers a lot.
Packers minus 2.5. I'm because I remember last week we were talking about this. I was shocked that the line has not moved, despite Packers almost beating the Lions in Detroit.
I like Packers a lot. They almost beat Detroit. They looked good. They had some stuff not go their way, and they still almost beat them. But Lions also had stuff not. Yeah, it's just those were just two good teams playing. But I still think the Lions are so much better. Give me Packers minus 2.5. I love the line.
Yeah, Packers probably my most confident bet of the week this week. It's hard for me to envision Seattle going 9-5.
This is the game. If Seattle beats Green Bay, I'll switch my tune.
Well, here's the thing. Okay. If Seattle goes 1-1 these next 2 games, I think you'll change your mind on them. They play at home against Green Bay and at home against Minnesota. I think
if they go 1-1, I'd say, do you know what? You're pretty solid.
To be honest, Seattle. So here's the thing. We talked about this also before the year. Mike McDonald leaving Baltimore. Baltimore's defense has fallen off. Seattle's defense in the recent weeks, it's a really young group. And I think they finally got that system down with Mike McDonald.
I still don't love the defense.
Their defense is they have some young players playing their game turnovers.
I don't think they're great still. I think they're fine.
No. Okay.
The Jets were looking pretty good offensively and then just fell apart because they're a mess. But
I think Seattle is a pass rusher and a quarterback away from being a really good football team.
I think the defense still needs more. I'm not saying it won't be like next year's defense.
Well, no, I think they last a true pass rusher.
But like against Green Bay, Minnesota, like none of their games are guarantees that they will have out.
I don't think so either, but I think Seattle.
So it's an interesting stretch.
They have a pretty strong secondary. I think they're just lacking a pass rush. I think that's why sometimes you kind of see them give up some big plays. But I really like Seattle going forward if they can get the quarterback position right. But yeah, Packers in this one. This is a slam dunk pick for me. I don't really see Seattle win this game. Now, if they do, I'll tell you what. I don't think you want to play Seattle in the playoffs if they turn out like if they.
Okay, we keep saying that, but then you're just gonna say that about every team. I don't want to face the Lions in the playoffs, so I don't want to face the Packers or the Vikings.
Okay, but the Seattle thing's not obvious to you because you're not high on Seattle.
But yeah, but you're just saying like these teams. I don't want to face them. It's like okay, so you want to face Atlanta or Tampa or Washington. Okay.
Yeah, 3 of the 4.
But you're in the playoffs. Not 3 of the 4, 3 of the 7.
So
the 2 of the 7, really.
Yeah. These next 2 games, both Monday night games. Bears at the Vikings. The Vikings are -7.
I almost picked the Bears to upset this, but Bears to cover, Minnesota to win. Minnesota's playing well, but I could just kind of sense a 1-game shift, and then. But I still have Minnesota winning.
I have Minnesota winning as well, and Bears covering. Last time these 2 played, it went to overtime. Probably shouldn't win overtime in the first place, but it was only a 3-point game the first time around. Mm-hmm. Bears are playing better since they fired Shane Waldron. Like the offense is playing better. Now the last 2 weeks they've scored 0 points in the first half, and they were outgained. I think it was like 300 yards to like 4 yards in the first half. It was really bad. But I think these divisional games are always super close. I know Minnesota's at home, but I do think the Bears are 7 points is a lot of points.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So even if like Vikings jump out to lead, I think garbage time you could see a backdoor cover if it gets to that as well. Falcons at the Raiders. This line doesn't make sense to me either, and I'm just gonna think about it. Falcons -4. I don't understand this line.
I wouldn't bet on this game because I just wouldn't want to watch it or pay much attention to it. Atlanta -4. That's all my analysis. I
But
see if Desmond
so you
Ridder.
wouldn't bet on you know you can still make money and not watch the games, right?
But no, I just don't want to even worry about the game or Atlanta could lose. There's a chance Atlanta just straight up sucks now. And so, do you know what? I'm just picking Atlanta -4 here, and I'm not really touching it because I just want it.
So I have Atlanta -4 as well, and I'm much more confident in Atlanta than you are. And if they're going to win the division, they have to win this. Like, you better win this game. If you think they're going to win the division,
Yeah.
they should win this game. If let's say it's halftime and Kirk Cousins is playing abysmal and it's a close game, is there any chance they make the shift over to Penix mid-game?
I don't know. I would. That's all I could say. I would.
Well, I'm saying, could they? I'm not
But
saying
I don't
they.
know. I'm not in the locker room. I'm just saying. I'm not the head coaches. I'm just saying I would. I can't say if they could. I'm not an insider.
God, the schedule is light. Yeah. Raiders, Giants, Washington Panthers. My God. They just won one of those games early in the year. Yeah, Atlanta, to me, I think this is a pretty easy pick. I'm going to bet this game. I think they're minus like 200 right now. I'll take those. I'll take those odds in a parlay.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else before we close out? That's the conclusion of our week 15 picks. We're
our week 16 pick.
Oh, that's right, week 16.
Yeah, I'm kind of ready for the playoffs. I'm just like, let's get to the playoffs. Kind of there mentally.
Let me see. I gotta open up my.
Let's let the Chiefs get healthy, then get to the playoffs.
Yeah, Chiefs. Let's. Yeah, they have 3 games in 10 days. Let's. Where is?
I have my pick.
All right, go ahead with your pick. So I'm still waiting for my.
See, I feel like we've always been picking our favorites. Panthers plus 172 against the Cardinals. I like the Panthers so much right now. I like the head coaching hire. I like Bryce Young. I like the weapons. I think the defense is playing better. So why would plus 172.
Rams minus 158 at the Jets.
That was my second one.
That's a really easy pick for me.
Okay. Are the Jets going to put Jordan Travis in at all? Like, you drafted him.
No,
he was pretty.
No, I think
he was pretty good in college.
I think
got hurt and the team fell apart.
The earliest I think they put him in is week 17. Okay. Actually, if they lose this week to Jacksonville, you may see Jordan Travis.
Oh, 100%. Well, I'm gonna be upset if they bench Aaron Rodgers and it's Tyrod. No, let's see Jordan Travis.
But I think Aaron Rodgers is trying to play for his job at this point and potentially a job in the NFL altogether. So he's auditioning. I don't think he's going to be wanting to get benched. But Rams minus 158 is super easy for me. I think they don't have to even play great in the passing game, and Kyron Williams will play well. I think Cooper Kupp will bounce back, and Puka is by far the best receiver now on the team. So
yeah,
and I'm trust Sean McVay over Jets coaching staff. So that's the easiest pick for me for next week. Well, that will do it. We are now at week 15 at 2024 NFL season. Season's wrapping up here soon. Hopefully Luke can somehow bounce back and win his fantasy matchup because I do want to play his weak team.
If I win, that means that I got some stuff on my team.
Or your opponent just falls off.
No, his team's too good. I got to do well. Maybe Bryce Young would be my quarterback for the rest of the year.
Please start him. Please. I'm not saying Bryce Young's my quarterback, but over your other alternatives, please start him.
I don't know. They're all interesting options. Goff just has he's had one really great game fantasy wise, and then a whole bunch of solid ones. But I don't need solid. I need great. So I think Bryce Young could blow up this week.
All right, that will do it for our episode this week. We will be back next week for our week 15 reactions and a look ahead into week 16.
Peace.